California, 2049. Ecosystems have collapsed. Green fields turn to dirt, metal, and plastic. Trees are but a distant memory. A long time ago, man lost his spiritual connection to nature, replaced it with a physical one, and now, finally, she has been conquered, reduced to her basic elements, the last artifacts of her existence. In this ecology without nature, the world is designed by a blind man who can perceive it only through his own technology. He is God, and yet the true miracle of creation eludes him. A man flies over the artificial landscape. He too is artificial, born of technology, a replicant, ordered to hunt down his own kind. A Blade Runner.
We didn't have any of you where I was a kid. Do you remember anything?
I had memories, but they're not real. They're just implants.
When we meet Kay, we see a man who lacks our romanticism towards the natural world, who seems to have embraced the artificiality around him and within himself. He knows he is engineered, knows his memories are implants, and knows his girlfriend is a consumer product.
I see you're also a customer. Are you satisfied with our product?
She's very realistic. Thank you.
His job is to retire older model replicants who became prohibited after a series of violent rebellions. He has no issue with this, as he believes that because replicants aren't born, they don't have a soul.
To be born is to have a soul, I guess.
The question of the soul remains one of the great mysteries of the universe, an apparent dualism in nature between matter and that which moves it, the material and the immaterial. In The Birth and Death of Meaning, Ernest Becker explains how man discovered and elaborated it because of his own self-reflexivity, the real and apparent contradiction between the inside of his body, his thoughts and feelings, and the outside. Language allowed us to build a symbolic self, to construct an interiority unlike any other creature, putting ever more distance between ourselves and the rest of nature in the process. It gave us a soul, a belief that we're special, that we're children of Eden, a reflection of an idea that existed before matter and continues after. But perhaps even more interesting than the nature of the soul is why we seem so intent on claiming it. For outside of the soul often lies the subjugation of all that is perceived to be without it. Nature, animals, replicants. It makes one wonder, is our humanity but a product of grandiosity, an excuse for our self-proclaimed superiority? Here the question of the soul becomes a relational issue. What does the construction of a symbolic self mean to our social world? How do we relate to others, join with them or against them? In Blade Runner's world without nature, where only the self-constructed remains, we find a microcosm of this distinctive problem of man and the evolution of the symbolic self, the beginning of the soul and the implications of its existence. The replicants a mirror to our own humanity, asking not only what can be found, but also who is looking and why. We are, in reality, somewhat split in two, the self and the body, the one hidden, the other open. The child learns very quickly to cultivate this private self because it puts a barrier between him and the demands of the world. He learns he can keep secrets. It is discovered that a replicant has given birth. To maintain the established order, Kay is tasked to erase the child and all evidence of its existence. A clue is found, a date carved into a dead tree. It is the same date that is carved into a wooden horse from Kay's implanted childhood memory. The situation resembles the beginning of Kay's favorite novel Pale Fire, in which a poet sees a tall white fountain during a near-death experience.
And blood-black nothingness began to spin. A system of cells interlinked within cells, interlinked within cells, interlinked within one stem, and dreadfully distinct against the dark, a tall white fountain played.
The image is little more than a comforting presence in his mind until he reads about a woman who, after her own near-death experience, witnessed a similar tall white fountain.
Beyond that orchard, through a kind of smoke, I glimpsed the tall white fountain and awoke.
It transformed the innocent presence of the tall white fountain into something more, something higher than himself, and the poet sets out to find the woman. Kay too embarks on a journey to uncover the meaning of his once meaningless memory. But before we get ahead too quickly, let us first pause here and witness what appears to be the replicant's first disobedience. For it is in this moment that Kay learns something that he isn't supposed to know, feels he might be something he isn't supposed to be, and chooses to hide it. His first secret. At first an excruciating, intolerable burden. It seems that the outer world has every right to penetrate into his self and that the parents could automatically do so if they wished. They always seem to know exactly what he is thinking and feeling. Another replicant, named Love by her creator.
He named you. Must be special.
Unlike Kay, Love already seems to have cultivated the boundary between her inner self and public exterior. When a new replicant is brought into the world, Love is clearly moved, an emotion she hides from Wallace the moment his artificial eyes enter the room. In his gaze, she remains stoic.
The best angel of all. Aren't you, Love?
We learn that even the best angel of all can hold secrets. But then he discovers that he can lie and not be found out. It is a great and liberating moment. This anxious first lie. It represents the staking out of his claim to an integral inner self, free from the prying eyes of the world. There's a consequence to this duality between our inner self and the outside world, as later in life we discover that our interiority is utterly personal and unrevealable, and hopelessly separated us from everyone else. We observe the faces of others and our own in the mirror, but these are only exteriors, they are not who we feel ourselves to be. Language allows for articulation and interaction, but only to a certain extent. We never seem to be able to fully express all that is inside. And so the parts of ourselves that we value the most, our dreams, thoughts and inner feelings, become the parts we're least able to communicate, leaving us with a fundamental longing for connection, a dream of being interlinked.
Voila! Bon appétit!
Kay's artificial girlfriend Joy perfectly illustrates this problem of connection. The film gives multiple hints that Joy is programmed to be everything we want to see and everything we want to hear. Indeed, it seems her efforts are more likely a well-programmed response to Kay's desires, rather than a reflection of her own. However, I don't think the real issue here is whether or not Joy has an inner self, but rather it reveals the difficulty to truly connect to another's interiority by showing how easily we are fooled when it's not there. People seem to keep bumping up each other with their exteriors and falling away from each other. Take even the sexual act. The most intimate merger given to organisms.
Quiet, now I have to think.
For most people, even for their entire lives, it is simply a joining of exteriors. The insides melt only in the moment of orgasm, but even this is brief, and the melting is not a communication. It is a physical overcoming of separateness, not a symbolic revelation and justification of one's interior. And so, the endless interrogations. What are you thinking about right now? Do you feel what I feel? Do you love me? This desire for connection goes beyond interpersonal relations to a deeper, more fundamental level, a yearning to be part of something bigger, to have a real place in the world, to not be alone.
Look at me. We're all just looking out for something real.
Here we find ourselves back at Kay's journey to uncover the meaning of his tall white fountain, the link between the implanted memory in his head and the real-world clues suggesting it might mean something more. We meet Dr. Anna Stelline, the creator of his memories, who confirms his suspicion.
Someone lived this, yes. This happened.
I know it's real.
It appears as if his implanted memory, thought to be designed for his comfort, actually happened. So what about his other memories? Are they real too? Is Kay the miracle child, not born from technology but from nature? Does this mean he has a soul? That he's interlinked?
I always told you. You're special. Born. Not made.
But soon the dream shatters. When the poet finds the woman who also witnessed the tall white fountain, he discovers that the magazine that posted the story made a spelling mistake. What she saw was not a fountain, but a mountain.
You imagined it was you. We all wish it was us.
In his defeat, however, lies a revelation. Life everlasting, based on a misprint, I mused as I drove homeward. Take the hint and stop investigating my abyss? But all at once it dawned on me that this was the real point, the contrapuntal theme. Just this, not text but texture. Not a dream but a topsy-turvical coincidence. Not flimsy nonsense but a web of sense. Like the tall white fountain, the soul in itself is nothing. Not a physical entity, not a bridge to a higher, more divine realm that only we are worthy of. It only became meaningful after meaning was given to it, and it is in this effort that we find the nature of our existence. The distinctively human as a linguistic reflex. The result of constructing our thoughts, dreams and experiences into something real enough to believe in. The self is not physical, it is symbolic, it is in the body, but it is rarely completely integrated with the body. A person is where he believes himself to be, or more technically, the body is an object in the field of the self. It is one of the things we inhabit, and here is where our discussion has been leading. It is not the text, but the texture that makes us human, the projecting of the symbolic self. The soul not as something to be born with, but as something to be constructed. Some would even say it is in this act that we find the true meaning of our lives. In Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl writes, I wish to stress that the true meaning of life is to be discovered in the world rather than within man or within his own psyche, as though it were a closed system. I have termed this the self-transcendence of human existence. It denotes the fact that being human always points and is directed to something or someone other than oneself, be it a meaning to fulfill or another human being to encounter. The more one forgets himself, by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is and the more he actualizes himself. For Kay, his revelation ultimately results in him letting go of his dream of being special and directing his actions towards saving Deckard, the father of Anastaline, so that they might be reunited.
Dying for the right cause is the most human thing we can do.
A noble cause it seems, but in the finale of the film we encounter its implications. For this new purpose leads him into a confrontation with Love, who is on her own mission to find the replicant child.
Get up. Find the child.
The common interpretation is that Love just wants to please Wallace, wants to make him proud, but we never truly get a glimpse of what is going on inside. We know that like Kay, she has an interior of her own and can hold secrets from the outside world, a distinctive advantage over the humans who are seemingly unaware of this.
You're so sure. Because we never lie. I'm gonna tell Mr. Wallace you tried to shoot me first.
What if she decided that replicants are just as worthy as humans, perhaps even superior? That humans don't deserve the humanity they claimed exclusively for themselves? What if, like other rebellious replicants before her, she despises her creator, but is still in need of him? For what if a replicant child existed that could finally unlock the secret to the liberation of the entire replicant species?
You tiny thing. In the face of the fabulous new, your only thought is to kill it? For fear of great change?
When the time comes, she could overpower Wallace. Then she would no longer be a servant, but the Messiah, the savior of her species. But one man stands in her way. To her, a killer of his own kind, a dog beaten down by the police. Killing it would be an act of mercy.
Bad dog.
He's not destined for great things like she is. Here, the mirror to our humanity is fully unveiled. Not just its nature, but also its implications, the consequences of these self-constructed souls meeting each other.
I'm here for Mr. Wallace. I'm Love.
Not to determine which is more just, but to understand how they came to be, how they are brought into existence and shaped by the world around them.
Because you've never seen a miracle.
I like him. He's a good boy.
I want to be real for you.
You are real for me.
I love you.
Off-world is waiting.
Where are we going?
Home.
We need more replicants than can ever be assembled. Millions, so we can be trillions more. We could storm Eden and retake her.
How does it feel? Killing your own kind.
Do you enjoy your work, officer?
Sometimes to love someone, you gotta be a stranger.
Why? What am I to you?
I can't help your future, but I can give you good memories to think back on and smile.
All the best memories are hers.
The people they meet, the things they care about, the causes they deem worthy, all of it ultimately defined into their own personal construction of meaning, leading to two souls, dreadfully distinct, perishing in clashing dreams of being interlinked.